Hi, I'm Susan. I'm going to tell you a story which occurred a couple of years ago when I was 19 years old, but still remains in my mind because it can never be forgotten. It was indeed an event that can never be forgotten. I lived a life in a family which consisted of 4 children, 2 guys and 2 ladies, which I happened to be one amongst those ladies. I was the oldest in my family because I happened to be the firstborn of the family. Right within me, I knew that I had a whole lot of responsibilities on me. My life from the beginning was very fun, and I grew up living with my family, friends, and my neighbors, though there were a lot of ups and downs then in my family, but I was very hyperactive back then. I was very hyper and wouldn't stop moving around the place from one joint to another. I was so not back then and always ever seemed to get my homework done at school. I was born at Kaiser Hospital. The first place I lived was on the street via Harriet and was right next to a train station. It was fun and so much annoying listening to the sound of arriving trains then. It was always noisy when the train passed by because it will shake the house and scared all the animals in the surroundings. It wasn't the best place to live, but as time goes, we eventually moved to the hills, where we never experienced the noise of a train again. I have never for once really thought about where my life was going. All I know was that I'm the firstborn of the house, and I'm sure I have a lot of responsibilities on me. I always believed life took me where I wanted to go. I never thought that I was the one who took myself where I wanted to go. After we moved to our new apartment on the hills, my parents decided to change the school I attended because it would be too stressful going to my former school from my current location. Immediately I entered the high school, my mentality about life changed. This is why I chose to go to college when I was asked which school I would love to go. I believe that college will give me the keys to unlock the doors of life. This way, I can choose for myself where I go, instead of someone choosing for me. I have chosen to go to the local community college to get used to the college experience. It was on a Monday morning, my first day in my new school. My mom woke me up so early so as to get prepared and not be late for school. I got to school before the assembly started immediately. When the assembly bell was rang, I followed the direction, which a lot of people followed, so as to get to the assembly ground. It's all amazing and awesome. It's all totally different from the way it was held in my previous school. I was really happy and excited. After I got to class, the teaching and the students were all amazing. During the break hour, some female friends came to meet asking of my name and trying to make friends with me. Now the day is over. We all need to go home. I followed the school bus home so as to get home on time to gist my parent how my day went in my new school. Only for me to get home and discover that my parents are fighting each other again, as usual. I just went into my room quietly and kept to myself all day. College life can be an exciting time, but at the same time, it can be so challenging. I know this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be a positive influence in the lives of children. I want to be able to stand up and show the children that it's okay to be yourself and stand up for what you believe in. I am a well-rounded student. For 2 years, I was actively involved in a girls' organization. This experience taught me many things. We were actively involved in community service activities, for which I received the Silver Award, the second highest award in the organization. I was so happy when that award was given to me, reason being that all what I planned for my life is getting achieved, one after the other, and also I'm making my parents proud. I learned about the value of friendship and patience with others. This organization first introduced me to my future career, which was a great plus to my life. I was also involved for 1.5 years in a student government club on college. In this club, I learned many life lessons, one of which was the value of hard work. I was one of the few people that organized the junior-senior prom of 2000. My responsibilities included planning coronation, buying and organizing decorations, planning the busing schedule, booking the photographers, fundraising, etc. This taught me about hard work, but the best part of it was going to prom knowing I was one of the only reasons that made it happen. In my family, it was so much normal to see my parents fighting and throwing things at each other. It has always been a painful moment for me and my siblings anytime we see our parents in such scenario. A case once happened back then which was so serious and critical when my father threw a bottle of beer at my mom's head, and she ended up in the hospital. It was indeed a painful experience because we almost lost my mom back then. My father threw a bottle of beer at her just because she refused to change the television station to his own choice. My mom spent more than a month in the hospital because she landed in a coma after the bottle was thrown at her. A series of money was spent on her before she finally came back to life. After that incident, all we thought was that my dad will come back to his senses and stop the way they both fight each other. But no, reverse is the case. The fighting still continued. Many of these events keep happening in my family, and even our neighbors got tired of settling issues between them. And if it wasn't for the school I and my siblings attend, we don't know how we would have survived all this. So it's time for competition in my class, and the teacher decided to share us into 2 groups. So in my class, there were 2 groups. Each group loved their singers and their sport teams, and yes, I was made the leader in my team. We defended with everything, and also we had our stars. For example, we loved Justin Bieber, and the other group was against us for it. We had a lot of fights with other opponents, and especially after school. To be honest, the other group was a bit weaker than us, reason being that they were much lower in number, and they got no talented person in their midst, but somehow they started to get their strength when we had a new student in our class and the teacher decided to fix her in the other group, and the name of the student was called Barbara. Barbara came from another school for the reasons I don't know, but when she came to our class and she'd been fixed in group 2, she started fighting my teammates every day for no reason. She would take up every little thing that happened. Barbara was a good-looking girl and so much attractive to every male in our class because she got a pretty face and some nice shapes and curves. A lot of guys fight over her just to get her number. Different guys are dying just to talk to her. Barbara becomes so much popular and famous in the college all of a sudden, but with me, I know she will be up to something later in future. Even teachers started to love her. More than we do. She was made a prefect and also the class captain in less than some months. Though Barbara is very brilliant and good at what she does. Barbara was also a girl who came from a rich family that were very well known and well-to-do, and guess what? Just to my surprise, some of my teammates left my team and started moving to her team. One by one for the reason I don't know. And at the end of the day, I was only left with 3 of my girlfriends and Mason. Mason. Mason is a good-looking boy, blonde, and he was a type of boy that every girl would like to have because he got everything he wanted in a guy. Mason is honest, kind, cute, brilliant, caring, trustworthy, attractive, and fun to be with, and a lot more of criteria embedded in him. To be honest, I like him a lot, and I'm tripping for him, but I don't want to be forward as a lady because I think he loves me as well. Well, I'll tell you about our love story later. One faithful day, while I was in class, I noticed that Mason was missing in class. I was still trying to look around for him in class, but then I heard some voices calling my name. Susan! Susan! I tried tracing the voice outside the class. I rushed to see what's going on, and what I saw was Barbara talking to Mason in a private area. I was so pissed and jealous at first, but I never knew what they were talking about. So I decided to stay calm. But in all my mind, I knew Barbara was up to something. After class, I ran to meet Mason, to stylishly ask what they were both discussing. But to my surprise, Mason was just beating around the bush. Same thing happened the following day, but this time, when they saw me, they got detached immediately. I asked Mason again, "What's going on?" He said nothing. She just asked me to help her out in something. So I told him that he's trying to leave my team as well, or what. But then he shouted at me and left. Then I knew something had gone wrong. Days went by, and obviously Mason has changed toward me entirely, so one day I decided to secretly sneak on Mason's phone to check his messages and chat. And then I saw what marveled me. A lot. I saw he texted Barbara, and Barbara sent him some hearts and love texts to him. And from there, I understood that they are loving each other, which means that Barbara has achieved part of her plans. But I will make sure that her plan will not be achieved completely. So I decided that one day I'm going to approach Barbara to talk some shit to her head. So that day after school hour, I went straight to Barbara to confront her. But then immediately, I got to where she was staying. All what I planned to say wiped off my head, so I went blank. But then I told her to leave Mason alone, and I went further, saying to her that Mason is my boyfriend, that she should let him be, otherwise you're going to have a problem with me. She was shocked seeing me in that manner, because I have never for once behaved in such a manner ever since I got to that college. The following day, after we left the assembly ground, Mason came towards my direction to approach me and shouted at me that what effrontery do I have to speak to Barbara in such manner. He so much raised his voice at me that few numbers of people looked toward our direction, and I was seriously embarrassed. Throughout my stay in school that day, I was not myself. I did not talk to anyone. I kept to myself, and after the school hour, I went home quietly, without saying a word to anybody. When I got home, I found my parents having issues again and fighting. I never knew when I busted into tears in their presence immediately. My parents stopped the fight and faced my direction. I just went quietly to my room and locked the door. I was so depressed that I was lost in thought all day that I slept off without eating. The issues between my parents and the one going on in my life is so frustrating. Now I've decided to stand on my feet, never to let my family issues or my personal life issues bring me down. Now Barbara has taken all my teammates, and now she is also taking my lovely Mason. I will never let that happen, and it will not happen. So I decided to take some naughty move, but I later ended up messing myself up with it. One day I texted Mason, "Sweetheart, can you please come over to my place so that we can practice our homework together?" But I was surprised with the reply I got back from him. But then I'm sure it was Barbara that took his phone to reply back to me. So Barbara took Mason his phone and replied to me saying, "I'm not your sweetheart. Please don't write to me again. I hate you." Immediately after the reply, she took a screenshot of the message I sent to Mason and spread it all the class the following day. When I got to school the following day, I discovered that people were just laughing at me, and then I later noticed that it was because of the message I sent to Mason. So immediately I went straight to meet Mason and asked him about the message, And he told me that his phone was with Barbara when I sent the message yesterday. So she was the one that spread the screenshot. I was so ashamed of myself for some moment, but then I never let that discourage me at all, because I already got my mind made up. But then I thought of it. Why don't I just go and meet Barbara face to face, and then we can talk it out with our actions? So I decided to go meet her. So this is it. I couldn't stand it anymore. So I just have to tell Barbara that I have a beef. I want to fight. I will wait for you after class. She was surprised hearing me say that, but I just have to take the move. Class is over. Immediately after the class, I went out so fast so as to go and wait for her. I was waiting for her outside. It took her up to an hour before she showed up. I already thought she would not be coming, but then I saw her arriving with all her teammates. I was looking into her eyes until she came close enough, and I pushed her with all my force I got, and she fell backwards and hit her head on the concrete. At first, I was happy that she fell on the ground, but then everyone screamed and ran away because Barbara refused to get up from the floor. Barbara was not coming onto her feet. I was very scared and feeling feverish immediately. I screamed her name, but she refused to stand up. She remained on the ground. Then I saw some teacher coming our way, so I ran away. I rushed home with fear all over me. My brothers asked me what was wrong. All I could say was to lie to them, saying it was a teacher that flogged me in school because I did not do well in my classwork. When my mom noticed I didn't come out for dinner, she came into my room to check on me and asked me what was wrong. I told her nothing happened, but tears were all over my face. I was unable to hold back the tears. She was all around me that night, but I did not say a word to her. She persuaded me to talk, but those words are too heavy for me to say. She left my room without hearing a word from me, but within me, I'm sure she will still know about it. I couldn't sleep all night. I was trying to imagine what could have happened. At a point, I was blaming myself. Why did I make the move of telling her to come and meet outside? Why did I push her? Why did I confront her? Why didn't I just let everything go? Series of questions were just running through my mind all the night. I was unable to close my eyes for just 1 second. Such a thing has never happened to me before. I could not open up for my parents because I never knew what they would say to me or do if I should explain the situation to them. The next day, I didn't go to school. I received a call from Mason, but I did not pick his call up. I was panicked and scared. Then in the afternoon, a teacher called my parents and explained everything that happened to them. They also notified my parents the update about Barbara's condition, that Barbara is in the hospital. She'd been admitted and in a state of coma. Immediately, my parents came to my room. They met me crying, but as a parent, even though they were not happy with the situation, they just have to console me at the moment. So we left for the school immediately. On getting to the principal's office, I was questioned for doing such an act, and a lot more was said to me. I was suspended from coming to school. Now I'm living a life of regret. I was unable to see Mason again, my teammates, my friends, and a lot more. Days after days, since I was not allowed to come to school again, I was in my room doing nothing but praying to God to heal Barbara, because I know a lot of things that is attached to it if she passes away. So one faithful day, after a week, we got the news that Barbara passed away. Oh my God! How come? How did it happen? Did God refuse to answer my prayers? Many of questions were just running through my head. I was weeping and rolling on the floor. Everyone was shocked, but I was even frightened and afraid the more. According to the doctor's report, Barbara had a large tumor on her head, but also said that she had an internal bleeding, which was too much, that she lost a lot of blood. My life ended there, because immediately she landed at the hospital, her parents already filed a case at the station. Now that her death has been announced, I have no other choice than to face the wrath of government. So I was arrested and sent to court. I was sent to juvenile detention for 4 years. Now I ruined my life with anger. I ruined my life with jealousy. Going to school has been stopped. I put my parents in shame. Now Mason has forgotten about the person called Susan. My plan and what I wish to become has been crumbled with my own hand. If and only if I could take back the hand of time, then I would not have allowed this to happen. If and only if this cup can pass over me, then I will be forever grateful. But all this are only mere thoughts which can never come to pass. I spent all the 4 years in regrets and lived alone, and with 100 times of more problems than what I have experienced in school. It was indeed a hell. I never wish anyone to go there, not even my enemies. I cried every day and spent many nights thinking about what I did to Barbara. In my head sometimes came a reason telling me to stop, because Barbara left, but not for my fault. But then, again, deep in me, I knew that I was the person who was guilty of all this. I found 1,000 ways I should react to that situation to stop this from happening. And I still, in my mind, got Barbara, and still think about what I should have done instead. The situation was so serious that I feel guilty, and I can't pass a day without thinking about her. I ruined it all. Now the day has come. 4 years has come and gone. I never knew it's already 4 years because I lost count already. On that faithful day, an officer came toward me and told me to come out, that it's time for me to be released. I was so happy again, knowing fully well that I'm going to see my family again. When I got to the officer's office, I saw my younger ones with joy in my heart. I gave them a huge and long hug. So the officer told me they were the ones that sent for my family, since it's already time for me to be released. My siblings are now grown up, but not looking well kept. When I noticed that I did not see our parents, I asked them what was about our parents. But they told me that when we get home, everything will be explained. Well, I didn't get to worry myself about that because I was so happy and joyous. Finally, I got home and everywhere is now changed. The surroundings and the whole environment is changed completely. I shouted, "Mom! Mom! Mom!" But to my surprise, I received answer from no one. I called my dad, also no reply as well. Then I asked my younger ones, where are they? Then they broke the news, saying they are both dead. I shouted, "How? What happened? Who killed them?" All these questions were asked with tears on my face. I was told Mummy died after some month. I went to jail because of the thought of seeing her own first child being sentenced to prison. And also, Dad died some years after Mom passed away. He had turned into a drunkard, and he drank all day and night, regretting all his actions over Mom and not taking proper care of us. They also told me that they've been surviving from helping people with their house chores and lots more of petty work so that they can feed and go to school daily. I busted into tears so loud that my younger ones just had to leave me to cry it out. Day after day, I need to get out of the thought of what life has given to me and move on with what I have for myself. My schooling career has been hindered because I need to put some food on the table for my younger ones. So I went searching for a job as a salesperson in a nearby supermarket, which I was actually accepted, and I was getting paid by the end of the month, and I was using that to take care of my siblings. I was able to send my junior ones to school, even if it was not up to a normal standard school, but at least I was trying my best to be a father and mother to them. Also, my boss at work has been so supportive financially and in a word of encouragement because I told her about my story, and she was really touched when she heard about it. After some years, I was in the supermarket performing my normal daily activities, and all of a sudden, a Prince Charming young cute guy walked in, making an inquiry on what he wants to get from the other staff, but I was attending to other customers. Immediately, I heard the guy's voice. It is so much sounds familiar. I looked up to see who was talking, and guess what? It was Mason! I screamed at the top of my voice, "Mason!" He was so shocked to see me, and he was so very happy as well. He asked what I was doing here, and I told him. I'm one of their staff, and guess what? Mason is now a top medical doctor in a well-known hospital in the country. He collected my contact that day and fixed a date for us to see and talk. Well, so fast I and Mason get along with each other. After I narrated all that happened to him, right from the time I was sentenced to prison till date, Mason and I became best of friends, and now he explained to me what him and Barbara were discussing those days in the college. He told me that Barbara and him were planning on how Group 1, which was my team, will win the competition. And as for my teammates leaving my group, he said it was all a planned work. He told me that the screenshot she sent round the school was just to divert my attention, so I would feel jealous. Now I was so ashamed of myself, and I prayed to God for forgiveness. After all that, luckily for me, Mason and I continue our love story from where we had stopped it in college days. Now I got to remember Barbara the more every blessed day. Not up to a year, Mason proposed to me, and guess what? I said yes. Now I am married and have a daughter which I named Barbara. I want it to be that every time I call her to remind me what I did. Though Mason was not in support of me naming our daughter Barbara, but I had to plead with him to please allow me. I want to pay the sentence, and yes, I am paying it every day. I cry every day and pray for her. God bless Barbara.
Hi, I'm Lisa. Life is indeed like an onion you peel one layer after the other, and sometimes it makes you cry. That's what happened to me when I was 13. My whole life came to a standstill when I was viciously knocked down by uncertainties of life. Imagine yourself not being able to move your body. You can hear and see everything happening around you, but you can't communicate. People come around you, but you can't talk to them. They can't even hug you. You try to give your body orders to blink, shake, laugh, and even cry, but it doesn't obey you. Imagine yourself not being able to say, "I'm hungry, I'm pressed, I'm hurt, I'm cold." I lay lifeless for days, weeks, months, and years, disconnected from the physical world. You might be asking how this happened. Well, that was when I fell off the staircase. I and my twin brother Peter are the only children of my parents. We are of the middle class, and Dad makes sure we are comfortable with his meager paycheck. Dad said it took them 30 years before giving birth to us because Mom had no fallopian tubes, So all hope of Mom getting pregnant in life was lost, and they had to live with it. One day, 3 men visited them. They were hungry and haggard-looking. Then Mom asked them to come in, but they wouldn't. They sat outside. Mom went into the house, made them a nice meal, and they ate their fill. Then Dad asked them to come in the second time. They did, and left after a while. After 7 days, Mom became pregnant and finally gave birth to me and my twin brother, Peta. Dad said our birth changed a lot of things. It seems as if there was this separation between him and Mom. They no longer do things together as husband and wife. Mom no longer contributes to running of the family. All she cares about was her Peter, day in and day out. But Dad was not like her. He gave us equal love and support, irrespective of our differences. I so much love the only sibling I have in this world. But the love was not returned. All I kept getting from him was a stab, rejection, and gossiping me to Mom. We are not identical twins. We had a lot of character differences likewise in our lifestyle. I love nature and adventure, but my twin does not care for such. He can stay in front of the television all day. Peter is a sadist, but I'm not. Maybe that's why Dad loved being around me, while Mom preferred Peter. Maybe because he looked so much like her. Mom is one of the horrible persons I've ever met in my life. You neither know when she is happy or unhappy. She is always moody. The only thing that makes her happy is whenever she sees Peter. To my mom, I did not exist. But there were things that makes me happy. The presence of my dad in my life was the major thing. I love adventures, and so Dad decided to build an adventure room for me and Peter in the underground of our little home. But Peter was not interested. Even when I was cleaning the room, Peter walked in and laughed mockingly. That was ridiculous. I assisted Dad to decorate the room with different kinds of paintings and a lot of scientific pictures. So the adventure room became another room for me. Another thing that made me happy was the surprise gift Dad got for me on my 13th birthday. That's Rosie, my cat. She is not just a cat, but a companion, a friend, and maybe another twin. I was so happy. I couldn't thank Dad enough. From that day on, I had a companion in Dad's absence. Rosie seems to understand me more than anyone else in the house, including Dad. Whenever Mom and Peter puts on a horror movie and starts making all sorts of noise in the sitting room, I go to the adventure room with Rosie. I can hear him talk to me with his mews, as if he is saying, "Don't worry. I am here. Everything will be all right." On one of such days, I couldn't control myself and I yelled at my twin brother, "Why can't you stop all these noises?" I decided to go to my adventure room. I left with Rosie following me behind the staircase. But I never knew Peter was also running after me. Then Rosie came in front of me, winking her eyes left and right, as if she was telling me something. But I couldn't give her attention because I was walking very fast in anger. Perhaps she was trying to tell me that Peter was behind me. Suddenly, I felt a push and slipped off the staircase. Everywhere became dark. I could see Rosie running around me, not knowing what to do, but I couldn't talk to her. My mom and Peter locked up themselves in their room, abandoned me on the floor. But Rosie lay beside me crying until Dad came home around 11 p.m. He immediately rushed me to the hospital. After a little while, I felt awake. I tried to make a move, but there was no response. Then it dawned on me that I am no longer myself. Oh, how did this happen to me? Am I dead or what? I could feel my body shivering. Suddenly, I heard someone. Wow! If I was able to hear someone, that means I wasn't dead after all. Yes, I heard him, but I couldn't see him. The way he talked made me understand that he's a doctor. He was explaining something to my parents. He told them that I had excess internal bleeding, which was as a result of delay of rushing me to the hospital immediately the accident happened. He said that I will be in this state until God knows when. Oh, I tried to open my eyes, to tell them that I can hear them, but my eyes couldn't move, neither could my mouth. I was devastated that I couldn't do anything. I automatically became a vegetable. How wicked life could be. Just 13 years ago, I had been a free girl who loves her dad, her cat, her career, and as well loves to play. I was happy and lively, but now everything suddenly changed. Doctors were confused. They thought I was completely in a coma. All I could hear was Dad telling me all will be well. As for my twin brother, I never set my eyes on him. Sometimes I wonder if he is really my blood. My mom completely disappeared. The doctor finally announced to Dad that there is nothing to be done. So Dad told him that I am coming home. I was excited to be home, but I felt bad again when Mom warned Dad not to bring me home because I'm going to be a burden to her. But I guess Dad's reason for bringing me home was to make sure I was around things that I love. Back home, I was treated as non-existing being. But right inside me, I kept telling myself that I am alive. Friends stopped visiting me. Dad's pursuit ran dry because the life support machine that kept me breathing was very expensive. Before now, I could run away from Mom and Peter's noise, but now I can't avoid it. Dad couldn't help it anymore. Rosie was the only one that understands me. She is indeed an extraordinary cat. She feels my pains whenever Mom yells. She will come close to me, touching my hands with her mouth, as if to say, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." Before, Dad used to come in to see me 3 times a day and then recharge the life support machine that kept me breathing. Surprisingly, one day, Dad tried removing the socket of the machine. Then Rosie cried out loud. This touched Dad, and he left in tears. Rosie always tiptoed into the room at any time of the day looking at me, and I know she is whispering something to me. Months passed by, and it was already 1, 2, 3 years. Dad got tired of me, and Mom complained I was occupying space, so I should be moved to a smaller room. And they transferred me to this small room where nobody was visiting apart from Rosie. This was the only time I saw Peter creep into the room. He looked at me and sighed and banged the door. It was not long I started hearing Christmas songs that told me it was Christmas again. I couldn't even celebrate. But in my subconscious mind, I was thanking God for another new year. And I was 17 this time because I was able to guess every period of the yearly celebration. Mom celebrated with her friends, making noise and smoking. Their noise became more unbearable for me. So Dad moved me to a clinic where nurses can take care of me. I saw Dad talking to the nurses. Who knows what Dad is telling them, I thought. I felt he was telling them to allow him to bring Rosie to stay with me. I felt a little relief as I saw Dad carry Rosie to sit beside me. At this time, I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember my crave for sciences, nor the moments I played with friends or the adventure room. But one picture kept appearing to me, is Rosie's picture. She is my best friend. She is always close by me. So I decided to create my own world in my subconscious state. In this world, Rosie was my companion. We did a lot of things together. We went to school, shopping, restaurants, and played together. There were also these other two persons that joined our world. Perhaps they could be some victim of people in the coma state. Another 6 years went by, and I remembered not seeing Dad for a whole year. Well, I never cared about the physical world anymore because I was enjoying the new world I created. But one day Dad came by. I saw him weeping with my best flower, a rose flower, in his hands. He also bought me a science kit and some other things which he decorated my bed with. Then I could hear him say, "Happy 20th birthday, my angel." Dad left the room angrily. Then Rosie picked one of those rose flowers Dad had kept and brought it close to my nose. My goodness! I perceived it and smiled at her. She screamed in excitement. She kept screaming. That her scream attracted the doctors and nurses. By the time they arrived, my eyes were open. The resident doctor was surprised. He said he has never recorded any case as this since his 30 years of practice in the medical field. Gradually, I began to regain consciousness. I was not angry when the doctors told me that I cannot move my legs anymore because my spinal cord was affected badly. Although it took me time before I accepted to be confined to the wheelchair. After all, God gave me life, so I am grateful to Him. Before I was discharged from the hospital, my mom came, begging that I forgive her attitude towards me. Just that she never liked to have a baby girl. But now she has realized her mistakes. Peter was crying and feels guilty for pushing me down. He confessed that he was acting out of the influence of Mom. Who am I not to forgive them? What if I died? I wonder if I will be here. God forgave me and gave me a new life, so I forgave them. And I was glad to reunite with my family again.
Do you sometimes wish you could forget some days? Skip them or just play rewind on the awful clips of your life? The pain and the stress sometimes make you unfocused. Your vision goes blurred and mind all hazy. Well, it was exactly one of those days. But first, I'll give you a little background about me. I'm Natalie. I am 14 years old. I have recently started going out with a boy from my school, Harry. He's a dream come true. He has asked me to be his girlfriend a few weeks ago. My mom passed away when I was 6, and I was brought up by my dad, who is extremely hardworking. My dad is a mechanic and leaves home at the crack of dawn. It was a Thursday morning. My dad had already left for work. I was in deep slumber when a shooting pain in my stomach jolted through my entire body. It was hard for me to breathe. It took everything in my body to get up from my bed. My dog was watching me with the bleary eyes, and I wondered, why can't he do something? Can't he see my agony? After the struggle, I finally grabbed hold of my phone and called 911. The dispatcher was kind and understanding. She was quick to send me help. Finally, they arrived. The sound of the ambulance alerted my dog. My dog bolted towards the door and started barking continuously. As a result, they broke the main door and took me to the hospital. I opened my eyes to a scrupulously spotless hospital room. Beams of sunlight filtered through the window. "Relax, honey," I heard a soft voice whisper. It was a nurse. I sighed and tried to relax. Within the fraction of a few seconds, I glanced at my stomach, which made me panic. It was swollen to the size of a hot air balloon. I started questioning myself. "What is this?" I asked myself repeatedly. It took me a fine moment before it dawned upon me. I let out a huge gasp. Am I a 14-year-old growing a real-life baby in my tummy? Am I going to become a mother? I cringed at the thought, but the sight of my growing stomach only confirmed my realization. "But I've only had my first kiss with Harry a few days ago," I said as I tried to gather my thoughts. "This can't be true." I started crying relentlessly. My shrieks and cries grasped the attention of the nurses. They looked at me and started laughing. Their laughter overshadowed my agony. Their shrill laugh made my head spin, which came to a halt when I heard a sudden knock at the door. A feeling of relief washed over me as the person behind the door was my affectionate father. "Dad, I've missed you," I breathed. My dad had a shabby appearance. His eyes were sunken in with huge eye bags underneath. I was slightly confused. He rushed towards me and engulfed me in a hug. He ignored my growing belly, but when he saw, he gave me a smile. "I can't believe I'm going to be a grandfather." I was taken back. Why is he behaving like that? I pondered. That was certainly not the reaction I was expecting. "We have to get you out of this hell," said my dad. "Why?" I questioned. "They are not good for you." It would be an understatement if I say I was bewildered at how my dad was behaving. The nurses started laughing out of the blue. Laughter echoed through the white walls of the hospital room. It made my dad lose his temper. He started yelling at them. Suddenly, made his way towards me and picked me. He detached the tube of the drip out of my arm. I gasped due to the sudden discomfort. His actions alerted the hospital staff. The nurses called the security and they took my dad away. They prevented him from seeing me afterward. In the next few minutes, the same intensity of pain ran through my frail body. The nurses injected medicine into my body and asked me to relax. "You'll be all right, darling," comforted a nurse. I threw up multiple times that night, which consequently made me feel better. They gave me a few pills to make me fall asleep. Later that night, I woke up due to a disturbance in my room. I was shocked to see my dad in my room. He had his hand over my attendant's mouth. I was petrified. I had never seen that mysterious terror in my dad's eyes. He was unrecognizable in nurse scrubs. Anyone could be easily fooled by his new persona. I didn't know what to do. But I knew one thing. My life was in danger. He hurriedly put me in the wheelchair, ripping away the drips. "Dad, stop! Dad, you are hurting me!" I let out a faint, incoherent cry. "Shut up!" Dad yelled. His eyes were bloodshot red, skin pale and lips trembling. I closed my eyes momentarily and a whimper escaped my mouth. What has come over my dad? I wished my mom was still alive. Is it too much to ask for? I thought medicine and illness made me emotional. I hated that feeling. My dad took a hold of my wheelchair and rushed through the bleak hospital hallway. He greeted the doctors and hospital staff in a sing-song female voice. I never knew my dad had astounding acting skills, but similarly, I didn't know anything about him, did I? I questioned myself. I never knew I had to see the day I'd have to see his facade slipping away. But here I was, being escorted by my dad dressed in nurse clothes. Life is so strange. It was too much to process for my 14-year-old brain. A doctor stopped us at one point and requested my dad to join him for his daily round at the children's ward. My dad pushed my wheelchair in a vacant hospital room and left me to help the doctors. I was surprised. He left me there for some time and came back with a devilish grin plastered on his face. They are such fools, the doctors. I can outsmart them every single day. I couldn't believe my dad would say such things for people highly regarded in our society. He was being outrageously awful. He told me that he has checked the patient's body temperature, measured blood pressure, and blood glucose concentrations. That easy, you see. They think they're gods. I had been horrified for my life as well as the ones my dad treated a while ago. Few seconds passed, and I heard some voices. "Catch them! Catch them! They are running! Phone the security now!" The entire hospital was in mayhem. People were running. Nurses, visitors, doctors, and admin staff, all of them were in a state of chaos. But nothing could stop my dad. He was still going peacefully at his own pace, oblivious to the chaos caused by his antics. A yell stopped him for a moment, but he grabbed the wheelchair and started sprinting through the hospital towards the elevator, colliding with the medical equipment and food trolleys in our way. At one point, he toppled cleaning trolley. There was alcohol and disinfectant all over the floor. God help me! Save me from the monster my dad has become! Nurses were calling the security, and I wondered why it took them so long. Please don't harm me, I cried. My mind was spinning and my vision was becoming hazy, but I tried my best to keep myself conscious. I took small breaths as instructed by my father once. I wanted my father back. Where did you go, Dad? Please, what has happened to you? He blatantly ignored my cries. Finally, we reached the elevator. My heart was pounding hard against my chest. I had streams of tears running down my cheeks. My life was at risk because of my father. Is there anyone more unlucky than me? I questioned myself. I hope not. My dad pushed the buttons to the highest floor. We'll put you to sleep forever. These doctors are no good for your deteriorating health, he whispered in my ear. For the first time in my life, hearing my dad's voice caused shivers to run through my body. I always found his voice soothing and comforting. I was certain he was possessed or something. He was behaving like a hysterical madman. Not only that, but he also didn't care about his blood, me. We reached the 40th floor. I was frightened. The doors of the elevator opened. Luckily, the security guards reached before us. His face lost its color, his eyes were wide and his body shaking. He was panic-stricken. In a matter of seconds, he pushed me towards the security guys. I was grateful they arrived on time. I didn't even want to think about what could have happened if they didn't come to rescue me. My dad went hysterical. He was mocking them. He was making animal-like noises. Catch me if you can. He looked like a kid has taken away his favorite stuffed toy or candy. Let's have kids. Kids? I questioned. He sure had some mental issues. What could have happened in a span of night? I didn't know. He ran towards the stairs with guards following behind him. I was left all alone on God knows what floor. I screamed and cried for help. I tried to gather strength to get up on my legs. My legs were shaking. I was having hot flashes and I was sweating profusely. I said my prayers repeatedly. God, give me the strength to stand up. Put me to my feet. It took everything in me to get up. I gripped the sides of the wheelchair tightly, trying to stand up. Finally, I got up. I couldn't believe myself. I let out a scream. I yelled, "Hurrah! I can walk!" With that, I went inside the elevator. Despite Dad's questionable antics, I still loved him. Why wouldn't I? He had brought me up with all the love and affection in this world. I was the luckiest kid with the most affectionate and caring father and an adorable little pup. Oh, my pup, you must be hungry. The thought of my puppy all alone in my house saddened me. I stopped at each floor to help my dad, but couldn't see him anywhere. I screamed his name each time, but my efforts proved to be useless. At the 7th floor, I finally saw him. But what I saw made my head spin. I couldn't believe I saw that with my own eyes. My jaw went slack. I thought I was daydreaming, so I pinched myself again and again. It was my dad getting into a fight with someone who was also my dad. I was shocked. My dad was wearing his work clothes. They were greasy. Couldn't contain my emotions and thoughts. It was the moment I passed out. When I woke up and saw my loving dad next to me, feeling of relief washed over me. My dad gave me a warm embrace. I couldn't stop crying. I was so scared. Do you know what has happened? Please, Dad, I need to know. He told me to relax. He told me that guy was a criminal who had run away from jail. He was taking revenge on the hospital. The hospital had sent him to jail because he took part in criminal activities taken place at the hospital a few years ago. He resembled my dad, which is why I mistook him as my dad. In addition to this, I ate too much Chipotle, which caused food poisoning. I needed emergency treatment, which I received promptly. My dad brought me my favorite tomato cream soup and kissed my forehead. You're safe, my kid. I could almost see a storm brewing up when I saw my mom walk in the house with yet another outrageously expensive necklace. My dad would go all haywire if he found out that she went out on yet another spree to drain all of his precious money, I thought. She has become a serious shopping addict and thinks that she can hide it easily because of my disability to hear. Well, much to her dismay, I absolutely can. When I was about 7, I developed a rare ear disease, due to which I couldn't hear anything by the time I reached the age of 10. We tried numerous treatments. Consequently, I underwent through several surgeries, but nothing really seemed to work for me. I was distressed. I knew life wouldn't be easy anymore, and I was petrified of the huge expedition in front of me, which was learning sign language and reading lips. I felt like my life has been turned upside down when I found out I couldn't go to the school every normal kid does. Yes, you guessed it right. I had to get enrolled into the school for children with sight and hearing disabilities. I'd be lying if I said it didn't take a toll on me. One day, I was so tired of limitation imposed by my disability that I started crying heavily. I fell to my knees with my head held between my hands, drowning in the river of my tears. My broken dreams and newfound anxieties would haunt me in my sleep. I was not ready to admit that I couldn't listen and jam to my favorite Fleetwood Mac songs. But I still had some luck left. God gave me good friends. It was just another regular stressful day until I saw my friend Macy rushing towards me with a bright grin on her face. She engulfed me in a hug. I was slightly taken by her strange behavior. "What's up with you today?" I asked. She nudged my elbow and pulled me to a side, whispering into my ear, "I have something for you." She had sparked my curiosity. "What's this device in your hand?" I asked. "This?" she laughed. "It will change your life." "Congrats! You can finally hear, my love." I would never believe her if I didn't try it for myself. Yes, I could hear everything. I could finally listen to Joni Mitchell as much as I wanted. I felt my feet lift off the ground. I was enthralled. I decided to be coy about it and didn't tell my parents a word about it. I couldn't believe that my parents didn't buy me a hearing aid despite seeing me struggle intensely. I felt betrayed, that too by my own parents. It felt unreal. They couldn't understand my misery. I talked about a storm earlier. So one night, my parents got dressed up for a party. My mom put on her twinkling necklace and clingy black dress. Both of them looked dapper. It seemed like they were going to a fancy party at an elite's palace. I was bewildered. When did they become so rich? I asked myself. At this point, I couldn't care less. I grabbed some snack and went to watch TV. Netflix and chill, you call it. All of a sudden, I heard someone banging on the door heavily. I slightly panicked, but decided to hear the door anyway. I ran to see in the CCTV my parents had recently installed. I saw a middle-aged woman in distress. "Yes?" I asked. "Open the door, please! They're after me! It's Tracy! I'm in trouble!" She looked like she genuinely needed help, so I opened the door and let her in. Her eyes were sunken in. She had huge bags underneath. It appeared as if she hasn't slept for days, her lips chapped and dehydrated. She kept asking me questions about some necklaces and my parents' whereabouts. I somehow told her I couldn't hear and left the room to bring her some food and water. She ate and continued thanking me profusely. A few minutes later, she retired to my bed as suggested by me, and within few seconds she dozed off to sleep. The sound of my parents quarreling snapped me out of my daze. I rushed towards them. "Why aren't you asleep, Emily?" my mom asked me. I sighed and asked them to follow me to my room. That is when I saw the color draining from their faces. They shrieked. "Why did you come here, Trace?" My mom's voice echoed through my room. We are in turmoil, I thought to myself. My dad made up some lie about Tracy's relationship with my parents and instructed me to go sleep in their room. I know eavesdropping is a bad thing, but I was not bothered. I still tried listening to my parents talk. I realized my friend Macy wasn't lying when she said, "This device is extremely high-powered. Because I could hear some men talking, we can't keep waiting for her here forever. They may call cops on us. We should leave." The huge black Mercedes drove off swiftly. Soon after, I heard my parents sneaking out of the house. I ran up to the huge window and couldn't believe what I had seen. My parents were sure hiding the truth from me. They met a guy in front of Tracy's car. He handed them red boxes. "We'll put them in the lock room." I was dumbfounded. Did we have a lock room in our home, or are they talking about our study? I had to find out, so I tried to hide somewhere they couldn't see me. My dad went to his study, followed by my mom. My dad removed his hand-knotted vintage rug, and I wish I prepared myself for this moment, because beneath the rug was a door to a basement. It would be an understatement if I say I was stunned. The room was stacked with cash and red-colored velvet boxes. My eyes shone as my mom opened few boxes. The diamonds and jewels lit up the whole room. I gasped and rubbed my eyes in disbelief. I heard my mom say, "Let's wrap up this matter tomorrow. We'll have to do something about Tracy. She can cause us some heavy trouble." I was confused. What are they hiding from me? How do I find out? I was exhausted. I was hyper-aware of my surroundings, so upon feeling slightest disturbance near my dad's study, I was up on my feet and marched toward the room. As I opened the door, she gasped, her mouth ajar. She panicked and tried to make excuses, and suddenly I felt a shift in her expression. Her lips upturned in a soft smile, and with that she came closer to me. "You've been so kind to me," she said, while stroking my hair. In a matter of seconds, she pushed me into the basement and closed the door. She knew the passcode for this safe room? I shrieked. I couldn't believe how naive I was. Now it was me in that room, all alone, crying and knocking on the door hastily, but no one heard my cries. Few seconds later, "Tracy is gone. She ran away," I heard my dad say through my hearing aid. My mom wailed while I could imagine my dad had his head in hands. He was furious at my mom. "You said Tracy was your good friend? Would you like to rethink about it?" my dad said, gritting his teeth. "What are you going to tell our boss Alex? He will not be good to us. You are one to blame," said my dad. "Do you want more of those blindingly shiny neck pieces?" My dad continued attacking my mom with snide remarks. I could only hope my parents would realize I was missing, but they didn't. So I sat on the floor of the room, soaking up the warmth from dim light of the room. I was surrounded by heaps of cash and boxes filled with jewelry. I didn't know my hearing device could catch the lowest and highest of the frequencies. I heard buzzing sounds. I figured out it was the boss Alex my parents were worried about, the same guy I saw in the black Mercedes. I thought my parents would finally come and look for me. The bell ringing snapped me out of my haze. I figured they were inside my house. They were demanding about Tracy and her stuff. Her stuff? I questioned myself. I could hear their footsteps approaching toward the study. Saying my prayers under my breath, I was ready for the relief. My parents opened the door of the room. There were two guys dressed in black standing in front of me. Their eyes lit us at the sight of cash and load of jewelry. Right when they were bussing looking inside, my parents shoved them inside and locked the room. I quickly hid behind the bags, hoping they won't notice my presence. But they did, and a shriek left their mouth that shrilled throughout the room. They were terrified. For a few seconds, I couldn't understand it, but eventually got a hang of it and decided to play along to what they were thinking. Suddenly, one of them broke their silence. His lips were quivering, eyes were wide, and body shivering. "Soul of the goodness, we ask for your forgiveness. What can we do for you to forgive us?" I had to stifle my giggles and continue with the act I had put on. I said, "Leave these people alone. It's not their fault. Go earn the money the righteous way. You need to leave, leave, leave," in a sing-song voice. I was surprised at myself and was trying my best to suppress my laughter. Both of them nodded their heads hurriedly. I think God answered my prayers, and my parents opened the door of the room. Both of them hurried out and ran without even looking back. They were definitely running for their lives. My parents chased them without even noticing me. As soon as they left, I came out of the safe room and ran to my room. I locked myself into my room. I sat on my bed, recollecting myself. I was thinking about my whole day as I lied on the bed. Whoa, what a whirlwind was this day, I said to myself. I walked up to my desk, took out my journal. I started writing about the unusual events of the day. It is sure something to remember for the rest of my life. Why would my parents lie to me? And why were they doing this? I pondered over the situation. I finally understood that they were doing illegal business just to feed their hunger for money. I felt ashamed. How can they be so selfish? They were buying those second-copy jewelry and selling it to the men I encountered earlier, who sold them ahead in black. I was in a state of shock. I thought we were poor, and my parents made money through blood and sweat. Since my dad had a small job in the corporate and my mom was a housewife who stayed at home and played dress-up every single day of her life. I heard the door closing, which signaled me that they were finally inside. I came out of my room, pretending to rub sleep off my eyes. That was the moment my mom turned toward me and gave me a sympathetic smile. I feigned unawareness about the situation and asked my parents if they could buy me a hearing aid, to which they blatantly refused. I couldn't believe my eyes. My heart said to confront them about the heaps of money they've been hiding underneath the ground, but my mind said to remain silent, and perhaps this was the reason why they want me to stay deaf. Nevertheless, I had learned my lessons.